Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating and frankly, completely game-changing investigation. We are going to explore exactly how modern technology is actively hijacking our neurobiology. Listen, if you've been feeling constantly distracted, mentally drained, or you just can't seem to focus on a single task for more than a few minutes, you are absolutely not alone. I feel it too, and it turns out it's not a personal failing at all. It's actually a biological hijack, and it's centered around one incredibly powerful neurotransmitter, dopamine. So, let's dive into this and figure out how to reclaim our minds.
Here's a quick look at our cognitive roadmap for today. We'll start with the overstimulation epidemic, unpack the great dopamine myth, see exactly how our reward systems are being hacked, understand the dopamine deficit state, investigate if dopamine fasting actually works, and finally, look at how to restore your brain's balance.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the overstimulation epidemic.
Let's set the stage by looking at this distinctly modern feeling of sensory and digital overload. We all carry this around every single day. Do you ever feel like you literally have too many tabs open in your brain? It's honestly the perfect analogy. Right now, our nervous systems are dealing with three massive sources of overload: sensory, information, and emotional. We're bombarded by a never-ending stream of electronic notifications, an exhausting 24/7 news cycle, and this intense pressure to always be connected. Seriously, it's a miracle our brains haven't completely short-circuited. This isn't just you being busy. This is your brain desperately trying to process a constant, overwhelming influx of stimuli. And you know, the physical and emotional toll of this overload is intense. We're talking chronic fatigue, brain fog, tension headaches, severe irritability, anxiety, and sometimes just the sudden urge to completely withdraw from society. When your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for executive decision-making, is subjected to constant demands like this, your body literally goes into a state of chronic stress. You are basically stuck in a low-level fight or flight mode all the time. To put that into perspective, look at this staggering number, 40%. According to a study published in Psychological Science, when we try to multitask under the high expectations of modern life, answering work emails while helping the kids with homework and quickly checking social media, our productivity doesn't just dip a little bit, it plummets by up to 40%. The constant mental effort required to rapidly switch between these tasks creates a massive cognitive load, and that quickly leads to deep emotional exhaustion.
Moving right along to section 2, the great dopamine myth.
To really understand why we can't look away from our screens, we have to debunk a massive cultural misunderstanding about how our brain's reward system actually works. Society constantly feeds us this huge myth that dopamine is simply the pleasure chemical, the thing that makes us feel good. But the reality? It's entirely different. Dopamine is actually a motivation signal. It's not about the pleasure of the reward itself, it's all about the anticipation and the pursuit of that reward. Dopamine creates the craving. It's the itch you desperately need to scratch. And that is exactly why you find yourself compulsively reaching for your phone out of pure muscle memory, often before you even consciously realize you're doing it. Let's get a tiny bit biological here for a second. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter synthesized in regions like the ventral tegmental area, or the VTA for short. It encodes what neuroscientists call motivational salience. Basically, it acts like a highlighter, tagging things in our environment as being worth pursuing. But here is the crucial part that absolutely blew my mind. Our prefrontal dopamine levels follow an inverted U curve. Think of an upside-down U shape. If your dopamine is too low, at the bottom left, you have zero motivation and poor working memory. But if it's too high, which is exactly what happens during digital overstimulation, your prefrontal cortex becomes totally unstable on the bottom right. You lose all ability to focus deeply. Both extremes completely shatter our attention.
Which brings us to section 3, hacking the reward system.
Now that we actually understand how dopamine works, let's see how this builds into the core of the biological heist. Tech companies are literally using B.F. Skinner's old psychology concept of variable rewards to keep us hooked. It's the exact same psychology used to design casino slot machines. When a reward is totally unpredictable in its timing or its magnitude, like you have no idea how many likes that new Instagram post will get or what the very next TikTok video will be, it creates what's called a ludic loop. Your brain releases a massive surge of anticipatory dopamine, and that keeps you in a state of perpetual seeking. It is an engineered cycle of behavior designed to keep you endlessly scrolling without ever actually letting you feel satisfied.
And the neurocognitive impact of this? It's absolutely wild. A 62% increase.
Research shows that algorithmically optimized platforms, particularly TikTok, can cause a 62% surge in high-level gamma brainwaves when you're viewing rewarding videos. Now, gamma waves are associated with intense cognitive load and emotional processing, so your brain is literally being flooded with high-frequency activity. It overrides your rational cognitive control and drives impulsive, continuous engagement. It's really astonishing when you realize just how powerful that algorithmic pull really is. So let's look at the fallout in Section 4, the dopamine deficit state. What exactly happens when our brains try to defend themselves against this relentless algorithmic overstimulation? Well, it leads to a truly fascinating biological adaptation. Dr. Anna Lembke from Stanford University uses this powerful analogy of a pleasure and pain balance. I want you to imagine a literal seesaw inside your brain. When you flood it with high dopamine digital activities, the brain tries to maintain its natural balance, its homeostasis, by pushing down on the pain side. Metaphorically speaking, it adds little gremlins to the pain side of the scale. Over time, this builds tolerance, meaning you need more and more screen time just to get the exact same feeling. But here's the catch. When you finally put the phone away, those gremlins are still sitting there. The scale tips heavily to the side of pain, which causes anxiety and irritability. Eventually, you aren't even scrolling for pleasure anymore. You're just compulsively using the device to feel normal again. And this leads us to a crucial and honestly frightening state called anhedonia. To protect itself from all that constant flooding, your brain actually downregulates its own dopamine receptors. Through a process called neural pruning, it literally changes its physical structure. This structural adaptation is the real reason why suddenly quiet activities like reading a physical book, going for a simple walk, or even just having a normal conversation feel impossibly boring. Your baseline for stimulation has been artificially raised so high by your phone that everyday natural rewards simply don't register on your radar anymore. Okay, Section 5. Does dopamine fasting work? I'm sure you've probably seen the viral trend of dopamine fasting going around online. Well, let's separate the internet hype from the actual clinical science here. First up, let's clear up a huge misconception. You cannot literally detox a vital neurotransmitter out of your body. No way. Your brain absolutely needs dopamine to function. What this term actually refers to is a behavioral framework. It's a structured, self-imposed abstinence from highly stimulating triggers, like that infinite scrolling or nonstop video games. The goal is to give your brain's receptors the time they need to reset their baseline sensitivity. So it's really about changing your relationship with the stimuli, not flushing the chemical itself. Dr. Anna Lembke puts it perfectly. She says, dopamine fasting is not a medical detox. Instead, it's a reset and harm reduction strategy. Clinical evidence actually suggests that taking a dedicated break from those high-intensity triggers, usually for about 30 days, is what's required to fully reset the brain's reward pathways. Remember, the goal here isn't to deprive yourself of joy forever. It's to restore your brain's ability to appreciate the simpler, healthier joys of everyday life again. Finally, Section 6, restoring your brain's balance. Now, let's pivot to the empowering part of our explainer. How do we actually fix this? How can we use scientifically sound ways to reclaim our cognitive sovereignty? Let's break down these biological interventions because to fix this, you actually need to provide your brain with the physical raw materials it needs to heal. First up, morning sunlight. This directly supports vitamin D synthesis, which acts as a neurosteroid that protects your dopamine neurons. Next, eating protein-rich foods gives your body tyrosine, which is the exact amino acid your brain uses to manufacture dopamine in the first place. Then there's regular exercise. This provides a slow, sustained release of dopamine that protects your brain over time, unlike those sharp, damaging spikes you get from digital media. And finally, consistent sleep is absolutely mandatory. It harmonizes your suprachiasmatic nucleus, yeah, that's your brain's master clock, which tightly regulates the timing of your daily dopamine release. On top of the biology, we can behaviorally engineer our environment using something like the Pomodoro technique. By setting a timer and working deeply for exactly 25 minutes, followed by a 5-minute break, we completely eliminate decision fatigue. You are essentially rebuilding your prefrontal cortex's delay muscle. By breaking work into these manageable, predictable chunks, your brain receives a natural, healthy dopamine reward every single time you complete a 25-minute cycle. It is an incredibly effective way to retrain your brain to find deep focus rewarding all over again. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative question. Once you step away from the algorithm, once you reset your biological pathways and successfully escape that endless ludic loop, what will you do with your reclaimed focus? Seriously, your attention is your single most valuable resource. By understanding your dopamine system,
You now hold the power to decide exactly where that attention goes. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through the brain.